I wanted to cut him. They signed a shitty contract with a guy that doesn't deliver any numbers in ticket sales or pay-per-views. And they got to keep paying this guy for however long. And good for him, not good for them. I was all about Francis in the beginning, and then I found out who Francis was. And I told the two guys who asked me not to cut Francis, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Francis Ngannou has only appeared for the PFL one time, and they're already having issues with each other. This past week, Donn Davis, the head of PFL, spoke about Francis not being present at the first two PFL Africa cards. And this is what he said, because ESPN asked why he was not there. He said, "You have to ask Francis. I'm not going to hide it. I expected him at Grand West Arena. This is part of his vision so that all fighters out there don't have to leave the continent like he did. We worked for 2 years. I'm direct and say what I think. I'm disappointed." I know Donn Davis is very disliked in the community. A lot of people think that he's doing a very bad job running PFL, but I understand why he would expect Francis to be there. Because if you remember, when Francis Ngannou left the UFC and signed with the PFL, they launched PFL Africa as a part of his contract, making him the chairman of PFL Africa. And as you can see right here, the Professional Fighters League, the fastest growing and most innovative sports league in the world, announced the launch of PFL Africa, which joins PFL Europe and PFL MENA as part of PFL's network of regional leagues that is becoming the Champions League of MMA. PFL Africa will introduce a regular season, playoffs, blah, 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 all of that. Now, Francis didn't go to the first two events that they had in Africa. Donn Davis called him out. This is what Francis Ngannou had to say on the Ariel Helwani show just 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
For those that may not know what I'm referring to, this is the Donn Davis quote. We have it here because I think it's important to get a...
And this is the quote I just read.
Someone asked him about you not being at the events, and he said, "I'm not going to hide it. I expected him. This is part of his vision. We worked for 2 years. I'm direct and say what I think. I'm disappointed. Disappointed in you not being at the first two events." A lot of people, I guess, thought that you would be there because it was a big thing, and clearly he thought. What is your reaction and response to this?
I mean, at least if it was me, I wouldn't keep it out there. Now, because he get in the position that we have to bring up context, like why didn't I come there? He didn't know why I didn't come. It's not the thing that you bring it outside, you know. I wasn't okay with something, but it wasn't the thing. I wasn't the one that was going to take it out. I wasn't very okay with the first PFL Africa event seeming to be like an undercard.
Now, just so you guys can hear what Francis said, he said it felt like the PFL Africa portion of the event was the undercard because there was a bunch of big non-African fighters that were on the main card, but no African talent on the main card. And that's why Francis Ngannou wasn't happy with the layout of the card. He felt like it should have showcased more African talent.
We work a lot for that, for the PFL Africa. But I hope PFL Africa debut would have at least have his glory, his moment.
So in other words, what you're saying is that first PFL Africa card, I remember it was in mid-July, and the main event was Johnny Eblin versus Costello Van Steenis, Dakota Decheva. Those aren't, part of the PFL Africa movement that you're starting with them, and you wanted it to just be about the African fighters, right?
Exactly.
And I understand where Francis is coming from here, but they're also, just to play devil's advocate, there really isn't much African talent to fill out a massive card like 10 to 15 fights. The MMA community is very split on Francis Ngannou because he has a very fascinating story of coming from poverty and essentially nothing in Cameroon, finding his way to France after a lot of struggle, becoming a boxer, then switching to MMA, coming to the UFC. You guys know the story if you follow Francis Ngannou. A very motivating, very inspirational story from him. But there are plenty of people that dislike Francis Ngannou, and there's plenty of people that think he finessed the PFL. This right here from Houdini MMA says Francis Ngannou pulled a Nigerian prince on the PFL and set them back millions. What the PFL gave to Ngannou: 7-figure MMA contract, sponsors on the shorts, allowed to have 2 boxing matches, 3 MMA events in Africa in 2025, named chairman of PFL Africa Athlete Advisory Board. And what Francis gave them in return, which this is all true: 1 MMA fight in 2 years, didn't fight or attend either PFL Africa event due to the lack of African presence. He has his eyes set on a boxing match next with Wilder, even though he's 0-2, still considering but not committed to the PFL Africa event. Quick break. If you're loving this video and you want more from Fight Society, click that join button down below to become a channel member today, where you'll get access to members only live streams, behind the scenes vlogs, and all the unfiltered stuff that we don't post to the main channel. Back to the video. Francis does have a very inspirational story. Like I mentioned, as a kid working in the sand mines, had to find his way out of Africa to become a fighter. He's talked about this pretty heavily, especially on the Joe Rogan podcast, where he brought Joe Rogan to tears talking about his story. Especially you see posts like this: homeless 2013 to champion in 2021. And also, terribly enough, he had his son die, his young, very young, like 1 or 2 year old son die this year as well. So, I mean, he lost a son. He grew up in poverty in Africa with nothing, became a UFC champion, lost his son after leaving the UFC, also got caught up in some other controversy this year where it was said that a woman he hit while riding a motorcycle passed away. And apparently it was, I'm not saying that I know anything, apparently it was partially Francis's fault. So he's caught up in a few things because there is it's a motivating story. He's trying to push MMA in Africa. He was homeless in France, lost his son. But then on the flip side of it, you have this right here of him potentially killing somebody on a bike. And it says, from the very beginning, I have been by the family's side, offering support, comfort, and my deepest condolences during this time. I've met with them privately to share their grief, and I will continue to stand with them every step of the way. I carry their pain with me, and my unwavering thoughts and support remain with them as they face this heartbreaking loss. That's definitely a ChatGPT statement. But you have the motivational, inspirational, and, you know, very sad side of Francis, sympathetic side where he lost his son and you feel sympathetic towards him. But you also have the PFL is upset with him. This fatal motorcycle accident is a little bit shady in terms of the details as to whether or not it was Francis's fault. But then you also have Dana White being very adamant about Francis Ngannou being a terrible person to work with. And that honestly points to PFL being in the right. But let's see, I'll show you what Dana White had to say.
The only one who's praying for his demise is probably the PFL, because they signed a shitty contract with a guy that doesn't deliver any numbers in ticket sales or pay-per-views. So, and they got to keep paying this guy for however long. And good for him. And not good for them.
Yeah, and I know
what was the other question?
It was, I know you said like he's all about the money, but then you also said like he would have made more money to stay here.
And that's a fact. He can play those games all he wants. He would have made more money here.
And just lastly,
let me tell you what. There were 2 guys here. I wanted to cut them. Someday I'll tell you the story. Francis was like, I was all about Francis in the beginning, and then I found out who Francis was. And I told the 2 guys who asked me not to cut Francis, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And yeah, believe me, I have no sleepless nights over Francis leaving.
And he also said this right here.
I think that I'm going to tell you what I think about what Francis is all about the money. Francis left because he knew that if he fought John Jones and didn't win, it would hurt his chances of making the money that he wanted to make. But realistically, his deal was bigger here. His deal was bigger here if he stayed in the UFC. I think I've told this story a million times. They can deny it all they want. Why the fuck would I lie? What do I care? It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I was going to cut Francis when he lost 2 in a row. I was going to cut him.
That was after the Derek Lewis
Yeah.
fight?
Somebody around here begged me not to do it. And, you know, so it wouldn't have mattered to me one way or the other, you know. There's a much deeper story to this whole thing. And he would have made more money if he stayed in the UFC. So he didn't want to fight John Jones. That's a fact, my friend. You know, we're moving on. Obviously, everybody loves Tom Aspinall and wants to see Jones and Aspinall.
And then we never saw Jones or Aspinall either. But what do you guys think? Because to me, it seems like Francis is potentially a very self-centered person, egotistical person that happened to come from a very, very rough upbringing in Africa with no money and no resources. And I'm not going to say that his story is not motivating, not inspirational, anything like that. It's a great story. It's obviously terrible that his son passed away too. But then there's also this side of Francis that makes him look like he takes advantage of the people that he's in business with. And here you have Donn Davis and Dana White, the heads of the only 2 major MMA organizations right now that are unhappy with him. And it makes it seem like Francis is a tough guy to do business with. This doesn't change the fact that he has a great story or that fighters like him a lot, like Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, and other people that train with him. Eric Nixick has nothing but positive things to say about him. But from a business standpoint, you know, says it right here, pulling that on him. So let me know what you guys think down below. Did Francis Ngannou finesse the PFL, or is he really looking out for African MMA? Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you want more from Fight Society? Like and subscribe below this video and click the join button to become a channel member today to get access to behind the scenes vlogs and members only live streams.